is a wonderful opportunity for me to convey a message, and not only about the Asian experience, but also about freedom, the opportunities that this great nation provides and the American dream. With one additional point, you all know that we're about to approach the Memorial Day weekend, and in light of that, I also want to speak about the blood and sacrifice it takes to preserve our way of life. I think John Brooks spoke a little bit about that. I'm going to kind of expand that based on my personal experience. I want to use my personal story as the backdrop because I believe it would resonate well with you all. And I also want to tell you stories about those great Americans I've had the privilege of fighting side by side with. So some of you may have heard parts of the story. You probably haven't heard the whole story. And I'm going to try to give some of that to you. This is something from a memoir that I penned a few years back when I was a major. When back then, I was the only Asian American in the unit. They told me, hey, you're Asian American, get up there and say something during API. So it started with that. But it starts in 1954. A couple of cataclysmic events occurred in Vietnam that would undo French hegemony in Southeast Asia forever. And that's the French defeat at the Set Piece Battle of Dien Bien Phu and the destruction of the elite French group in Mobile 100 on the street without joy. Being a highly decorated member of the French Commando Group North of Vietnam, my father had the opportunity to go to France, but instead chose to stay and continue the struggle against the Vietnamese communists. In 1954, he went south with his new bride as the Geneva Convention divided Vietnam in two, with the communist government taking control of the North. In South Vietnam, my father transitioned into the South Vietnamese Marine Corps, becoming one of the first U.S.-trained Vietnamese Marine officers. By 1968, my parents had 5 children, myself and 4 sisters. And with the war going on, my father was continuously deployed. But the rest of the family lived in Saigon, the southern capital of Vietnam, in relative comfort, sheltered from the violence of the war. However, in 1968, under the cover of a ceasefire, the communists staged a violent general uprising in South Vietnam, known to us as the Tet Offensive. I was only about 2 years old and not old enough to currently retain all the events surrounding my family's struggle back then. But I was old enough to vividly maintain traumatic images of shells exploding near my house and the acrid sight and smell of smoke consuming our living room. At that time, my father was fighting with his unit, so we were left to fend for ourselves. With the help of some of my older sisters, my mom pushed us out of our burning house into the hellish streets. Fortunately for us, the Klan converged to assist. A few of my mother's brothers and cousins, alone on Vespa scooters, began the Herculean task of shuttling my family out of harm's way. For my mom, the struggle did not end there. Several days later, she came back to the old neighborhood to try to find any information on my dad. She was distraught to find an overturned Jeep with a dead South Vietnamese Marine captain aboard. Since the body was already decomposing and partially burned, my mother thought this may have been my dad killed while coming for our rescue. Several days later, we were relieved when my father made contact to check on our status. Following that offensive, we returned to living our lives. We were far from being wealthy, but we had enough to enjoy the simple pleasures of life in Vietnam. And again, the ravages of war, prominent in the Delta and remote areas of Vietnam, were far away from the neon lights of Saigon. But things began to change in 1974 after the United States had withdrawn much of its support. The communists began moving massive arms and soldiers down the Ho Chi Minh Trail to prepare for decisive action against South Vietnam. In spring 1975, North Vietnamese General Vo Nguyen Giap devised a brilliant plan to capture Ba Ma Thuột, a major capital of the Central Highlands, to effectively cut South Vietnam in two. His deception caused the South Vietnamese to concentrate forces to the north, leaving the soft underbelly of the Central Highlands for classic communist envelopment. At this time, my father was serving as the XO to the Commandant of South Vietnamese Marines, and in February and March, I vividly remember my father's dejected look upon returning from his battlefield circulation with the Commandant. He told my mom that the country was doomed. He predicted that South Vietnam would probably fall by April 1975. And in March, the family began a series of nightly meetings in which 3 options were discussed. The first option was get the entire family out of the country. The second involved getting me or one or two of my sisters out of the country to live with some of my dad's former U.S. Marine advisors. Being the only son in a pre-progenitor culture, the family would sacrifice the rest just to get me out. And the third option entailed my father escaping to the jungles, leaving the family behind to continue to fight against the communists. And as a young child, I sat at the table, I observed the nightly discussions, but did not get a chance to vote. Either way, I can't imagine the heartbreaking decisions that my parents were facing. My father also developed a list of points of contacts and important telephone numbers for people in Vietnam and the United States. We had to memorize this list and recite the information upon request. So my older sister had to also memorize several contingency plans, including link-up and breaking contact procedures. In addition, we began physical conditioning. We worked on different casualty carrying techniques to ensure that we had the know-how and the physical conditioning to assist our siblings when they become casualties or just merely too exhausted to continue the journey. Needless to say, these were not the best times of my childhood. And then a break came. My father met an American, Mr. Michael Casey, who promised to get our entire family out of harm's way. And with his assistance, we quietly slipped out of our house on the 24th of April, 1975. We spent that first night at some Vietnamese house, and the next day we moved inside the World Vision compound. On the morning of the 26th, with paper provided by Mr. Casey, we entered Tan Son Nhut Airport for departure via commercial air. The mood was tense, with some sense of happiness because the entire family was still together. Tan Son Nhut Airport was already seasonably hot by April. The airport was filled by privileged Vietnamese dignitaries attempting to leave the country. The place was so overcrowded that we had to sit out by the hot parking area. But nevertheless, no one seemed to mind. On the morning of the 27th, the brilliant sun marked another day. Through the radio, we found the situation outside the airport dire. Major South Vietnamese units blocking the North Vietnamese advance were obliterated and murdered wholesale. So my uncles were still fighting with their units. To our chagrin, two South Vietnamese A-37 Cessna aircraft led by turncoat pilot Lieutenant Truong bombed the airport the same afternoon. The sight of these aircraft made us cower under our parents. My dad looked up, chuckled, told us not to be afraid because we were missing out on a monumental event in history. His coolness gave us assurance that things would be okay, but they were not. The aerial bombardment was followed by barrages of artillery and mortars. Several people close by to me were injured by mortar fire. We heard their Korean groans, and we prayed for our own salvation. I was scared to death. I was lying on my belly by my mom. I clearly heard the intense palpitation of my heart. I closed my eyes, and I did the only thing a 9-year-old kid knew how to do. I recited my Hail Marys. We managed to live through the day, but with serious degradation of hope. And to add to the misery, we found out that day that the U.S. has ceased all fixed-wing aircraft operations due to high anti-aircraft threat. On the 28th, the mood at the airport was apathetic. People seemed to have lost all hope. I saw ghostly apparitions walking around with empty eyes, clothes and suitcases strewn everywhere. I was unsure what the future had in store for us, but I knew that as long as my stalwart Marine dad was still with us, things would be okay. So in the afternoon, a young U.S. Marine captain and his radio operator walked up towards us and asked for an English speaker. My father spoke fluent French and English, having been educated at the lycée, and later earning a degree in English literature from the University of Saigon. I saw my father stood up and talk to the Marine captain for a few minutes, and at the conclusion, my father began giving general instructions to all the males in the area to begin clearing from the tarmac to allow helicopters from the 7th Fleet to begin a rotary wing extraction. Several of the privileged males became confrontational. My dad had to calm them with drawn .45. Within a few hours, the parking lot area and tarmac were clear of debris. And at sunset, we saw beautiful serial Marine CH-53s make the final approach towards Tan Son Nhut Airport. Unbeknownst to us, this was the start of Operation Frequent Wind, a non-combatant evacuation operation, which would eventually fly 609 Marine and Air Force sorties, airlifting tens of thousands of South Vietnamese from South Vietnam onto the ships of the 7th Fleet. And on the 29th of April, hundreds of Vietnamese began an orderly evacuation. My father relieved lift assignment on that day, and we began for our journey. And the only possession we were allowed to take was a briefcase with essential documentation and a few U.S. dollars. When directed by Marine Pickup Zone Control, we loaded the lumbering 53, and within minutes we're at altitude. I stretched my neck to observe communist tracers coming at us, and I watched the Marine door gunner answering time with his own machine gun. Luckily, the rest of the flight was uneventful. The aircraft landed after a short flight. We had no idea where we were. Some people thought we were on some island right off the coast of Vietnam and probably getting ready to get abandoned one more time. When we walked off the aircraft, I remember tugging on my dad and asking him where we were. And I remember to this day, my dad calmly told us, we're embarked on the U.S.A. Hancock. I asked him what that meant, and he said, it means that nothing in this world can harm you now. So we cruised on the Hancock for 3 days, and on the 4th day we embarked at Subic Bay in the Philippines, where we spent the next 3 following days in processing. And upon receiving our clearance, we flew to an established refugee camp at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, where we stayed for about 6 months. And during our stay in Arkansas, my father received numerous generous offers from friends in the United States, as well as very generous offers from the French government. However, in the end, he boldly chose California. He had spent months in San Diego training with U.S. Marines, and he knew that California provided the best environment for assimilation and upward mobility. So after 6 months at Chaffee, my father moved the family to Los Angeles, California. We lived with Mr. Mike Casey and his family for a few weeks, but my father asked to move out on our own to alleviate the strains on the Casey. And with only a couple $100 and dreams of greatness, we moved to a poor part of Los Angeles. My father began working immediately as an armed security guard. My 2 oldest sisters, already attending top colleges in Vietnam, found jobs soon after. My oldest sister went to work in a sweatshop in Chinatown, and my second sister pumped gas at a crowded intersection near Hollywood and Vine. The rest of us went to school with one goal in mind, is that to succeed. My oldest sisters, having been exposed to labor that they were not accustomed to doing, came home crying on numerous occasions because my oldest sister was simply not skilled enough to produce what the shop owners demanded. My second oldest sister soon after was robbed at gunpoint, and they actually pointed a gun to her head. Liberty and freedom aside, this was not exactly the American dream we had envisioned. So my father decided immediately then that my sister would continue schooling while working. He would carry the burden of work by expanding his work schedule from 60 to 80 hours per week. My mom soon supported his effort by working at a fast food restaurant. Hence, parenting duties fell squarely on my 2 older sisters, who were total disciplinarians. They ensured we ate our dinner, took our baths, did our homework, and God help you got a B because that was catastrophic failure. My older sister was given total authority over us. She sat with us stoically every night with spanking ruler in hand to supervise our schoolwork. And behind her back, we really hated her, and we called her the Dragon Lady after the cruelest Empress Suyi of the Qing Dynasty in China. But I will tell you to this day, without the Dragon Lady, we would never have succeeded. We never had money to eat out. We wore clothes from Goodwill. We never took a family vacation. But we had the liberty and the right to choose how we lived our lives. I spent quality time with my father going to his security job on the weekends, often sleeping on someone's carpet while my father conducted his mandatory checks. And that was one of the ways we mitigated the challenge of not having time with my father at home. And 40 years later, almost 20 years after my father's passing, those were truly the best moments I have spent with him. Several years later, my two older sisters graduated from college. They immediately found jobs and contributed their entire salary to the family finance. My father soon found a job with the Department of Public Social Services as a social worker, principally helping other Vietnamese Americans. The rest of us maintained our focus in school with one goal in mind, to make our parents proud. And by 1979, just 4 short years after landing here, we earned enough money to buy a small house in Hollywood. And with solid guidance and family support, we took turns earning college scholarships. We became attorneys, biologists, computer scientists, so on. And I have to pause here for a moment, but it's an important point to note that half of my family ended up going to U.S.A, a very good private institution, while the other half had to settle for that public school across town. And I don't even want to say their name because I don't like them that much, but I will tell you that their initials are "You Clown Lost Again." Our success was predicated by numerous factors, but rested on a single fact, and that's being American. Being Americans meant that we were afforded the opportunity to embrace the wondrous privileges given to us by our Constitution and to realize our immense dream. This fable story only happens in America. And I'm American by choice and not by birth, and I've chosen, believe it or not, to serve this nation as a 9-year-old kid when I was standing aboard the USS Hancock, because I believe in everything that this country stands for. You have another Vietnamese American, Lieutenant Colonel Locke, is in the crowd here, and at the same time his family was getting scooped up by the USS Ranger, and I think he actually has film and photos of that. But we've chosen to serve our country to help preserve our freedom and our way of life, and it's certainly not for everybody. But it is how I can best repay my debt, because I come from a long line of warriors, and like me, many Vietnamese Americans have joined our ranks despite coming from a war-torn country. 13 of them have made the ultimate sacrifice in Iraq and Afghanistan. Look, we didn't come here to fight. We certainly didn't come here to die. But we are passionate about freedom and are willing to put our lives to preserve that. And a small fact, retired CW2 Lee, who worked for Scott Taylor there as a civilian GS-13, Vietnamese, he and my cousin were closest friends, and to tell you how small this world is, both of them joined me in the 82nd Airborne as enlisted paratroopers in then Lieutenant Colonel Leo Brooks, General Brooks' battalion, as paratroopers, and all they had on them were green cards. They weren't even American citizens yet, so just to put things in perspective. But as I stated at the beginning, the opportunities that work with my family and most of you come at a high price. And for me, it's been so close and personal, and I would like to talk about this because it would be remiss for me not to spend some time talking about this, because I know a lot of our young soldiers and officers sitting out there, besides from few battalion commanders and above, probably don't have the combat experience. But if you do, you may not have seen the same thing that some of us have seen. And I want to talk about some of these great Americans. Okay? Brandon Lopez was with me in Afghanistan. He was under Colonel Rob Harmon's brilliant 1st Battalion, 187 Infantry Rocketson, my brigade. And we had responsibility for P2K, or the provinces of Paktia, Paktika, and Khost. During major fighting in 2010, we received intelligence that the Taliban had established a large base in the eastern part of Paktika province. So we're not going to have that. So I ordered Rob Harmon's battalion into action to destroy the enemy fire. We had great ISR, and we had softened them up all morning and throughout that night with E-1 airstrike with our pre-assault fire. The battalion afterward air assaulted into the objective during the night, and by mid-morning, we were really cleaning the clouds. Later afternoon, I found out that Lopez's company was in a fierce firefight with a large dug-in Taliban element. He was wounded severely by rocket-propelled grenades. and let the evac him to the combat support hospital. He was just coming out of surgery and still under heavy medication, blinded in both eyes. We knew he was on his way to Germany due to the severity of his wounds. So I grabbed his arm and I told him I was his brigade commander, Rocketron 6. And I told him, Lopez, you're going to be okay because I'm going to get to Germany where you can get great care. However, he had no concerns about his own well-being. He kept on asking me about Specialist Jeremy Brown. I stood in awkward silence, not having the courage to tell him that Brown, along with some of my other troopers, had made the ultimate sacrifice in the same fight. Then I remember, in a soft whisper, Lopez said, Rock 6, I want you to know that I did my best for you out there. And then he passed out. He's not out of the Army. I'm still in contact with him. But he still suffers from limited wounds and PTSD as well. Reaper Team 2. Reaper Team 2 was my sniper team. They were with me in Iraq for a straight 15 months from 2006 to a good part of 2007, and I commanded 2nd Battalion 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, part of 3rd Brigade 82nd Airborne. This team consisted of Staff Sergeant Mortal, Specialist Willis, PFC Moser, and PFC Corporal. We went to combat in a very evil place, some of you guys may recall, named Samara. The insurgent blew up the Golden Mosque in 2006, propagating a vicious cycle of sectarian violence that spread throughout the country. My battalion was sent to restore security, improve infrastructure, and assist the Iraqis establish local government. Although we executed all 3 major missions, fighting and dying were what we did most, since the area was surrounded by not only Al-Qaeda in Iraq, but multiple former regime elements, including the 1920 Brigade and Ansar al-Sanaa. By this time, we had been in country for about a year, and we had had great success putting the wood to the enemy. And on that fateful day, Team Reaper 2 was on another mission. We had a raid against a Tier 1 HPT of Bosnians, right in the heart of Samara. But we came up empty. And Reaper Team 2 had infiltrated into the objective area 72 hours before that. And so I made the fateful decision to keep the team overwatching the objective as we pull off in order to gain additional intelligence on our target. And I positioned a platoon of paratroopers a mere 10 minutes away as a quick reaction force. Unbeknownst to me, Reaper 2 rooftop high-stack position in a bombed-out building was compromised and betrayed by some locals. In a matter of minutes, Al-Qaeda swarmed the position with 40 hardcore veterans. 10 of them assaulted the stairwell with machine guns and grenades. Morley held down the stairs. He gallantly defended the stairwell by himself to stave off multiple enemy assaults, but was finally mortally wounded just a few minutes into the fight. As some of you may recall, this is the same time that General Petraeus was preparing for his assessment in Iraq, and being able to capture a live soldier was strategically advantaged to insurgents. Or if they can't do that, they would grab a soldier's body. So try after try, the enemy went up the stairs and tried to grab Morley's lifeless body. Willis would not have that and fought like a lion with his machine gun and grenades. And outnumbered 10-1, he was killed by enemy fire. And over the next few minutes, the enemy assaulted in waves to try to overrun our position. Corrigal and Moser fought with everything they had, including weapons of dead enemies. And by the time the quick reaction force arrived, the pair had nothing left. Corrigal and Moser were awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, our nation's second highest award for valor next to the Medal of Honor. But most importantly, for us, they prevented the enemy from taking Morley's body. I remember talking to Morley just a few weeks before. I'm very close to my troops. He was a superb non-commissioned officer. His father was a Green Beret in Vietnam, and Morley was equally accomplished by this early stage of his military career. When I talked to him, he was really excited. He was planning to take some R&R after the mission. You see, he was preparing to meet the most precious thing in his life, his newborn daughter. I regret each day that we weren't able to make that meeting happen for him, but we got Josh home. He now lies on his family land just outside Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I hope one day to be able to tell his daughter, when she's old enough, what a wonderful man, what a wonderful patriot her dad was. Finally, I want to tell you about Jimmy Patton. He was like a nephew to me. Matter of fact, he was almost a nephew to Command Sergeant Major Merritt, because as a kid, he used to cut Sergeant Major Merritt's grass at Fort Payne. 2 weeks before my brigade's deployment in Afghanistan, Jimmy was at my house for a barbecue. He was brimming with joy as a father of a new, beautiful baby daughter. We ate barbecue and we drank beer. I remember him telling me how much he loved Miller in the can because he claimed that you could get more for your money. Jimmy, this time, was getting ready to go to Iraq. As a squad leader of the 3rd Ranger Battalion, he already had multiple combat deployments under his belt. At 3 a.m. Afghanistan time, I was woken up by my good friend, General Eric Carrilla. Eric was one of my best friends and then the commander of the JSOC Task Force 373. And I thought nothing of a late call because he and I would routinely talk about sharing intel or share stories about a good night wait that any of us had been on. This time it was different. He paused for a few minutes, and he was not his usual talkative self, and he told me Jimmy had been killed during a raid on the terrorist al-Baghdadi near Tikrit Robin. So my heart stopped, and I sat in the dark, and I cried to myself for about 2 hours because I was pondering the next task at hand. At 0500, I informed Jimmy's dad, my brigade command sergeant major, that Jimmy had made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. Sergeant Major Patton grabbed his face and sobbed really hard. He was one of the hardest warriors I have served with, and that day was the first day I see him break. Again, it's really hard for me to tell these stories, but I want you to have some good perspective on what it takes to do this, to preserve our way of life and to celebrate these great months in our lineage and all that. That's all great stuff. But I take nothing for granted. This month is as much a celebration as it is a reflection. We live in the best country in the world. And don't let anybody tell you anything different. America to the world is what the U.S.A. Hancock was to my family in 1975. I offer that to you as one of the reasons why men and women like us are willing to put ourselves in harm's way, even right now. And perhaps the words of Adlai Stevenson describe it best when he says, quote, when an American says that he loves his country, he means that not only he loves the New England hills, the prairies glistening in the sun, the wide and rising plains, the great mountains and the sea. He means that he loves an inner air, an inner life in which freedom lives, in which a man can draw a breath of self-respect. End quote. The last takeaway I have for you is love for our nation and her ideals specifically. Don't really care what your political leanings are. Don't really care which party is in power. But the one thing that stays constant is our values and who we are as Americans. So I ask you to profess your love of our nation through your faithful and honorable service. And I'll end with another one. The great writer Michael Shara says it best when he was describing Josh Chamberlain, the hero of Gettysburg. And again, I'm a person of strong faith, no disrespect to our Lord. But Shara says, quote, Chamberlain's faith in this country is stronger than his faith in God. For this is a land where no man had devoured. Kamsahamnida. God bless you. Pursuit victor.
At this time, Total Force will present Brigadier General Luong with a small token of appreciation for participating in today's event.
So I'd like to thank you for, please take seats. I'd like to thank you for your time today.